everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel and another paper crafting video tutorial. Today we are going to be creating some really pretty and fun Easter cards using brand new products from the Simon Says Stamp Splendor release. This is part of the February 2024 release and it is full of so many incredible products. We're going to start today by inking 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch panels with some Tropic Positively Saturated ink from Simon Says Stamp. I am using the stamp wheel from Altenew to help hold my cardstock in place as I am adding that ink color mostly to the center of the panels. I want it to kind of fade out to white along the edge, so I am starting in the center and I'm using a very light hand to apply the ink to the center of my panel and kind of work my way out. I decided to keep this one color because we will be adding some amazing texture to these backgrounds. Now, while both of my backgrounds will be created the same, everything else about them will feature different stamps and dies. Using the new Hippity Hoppity text stencil, we are going to place that over the top of our backgrounds, and using some Tim Holtz opaque grit paste, we are going to apply this. Now, at first, I kind of thought maybe I would just put it in certain places and kind of have it be a little more imperfect. And I quickly decided, you know, I think I want it to just go all over. For these cards, I feel like an all over text design is going to be better. And with the white edge out along the borders of each of these panels, it's going to give a really cool effect of the white opaque paste over the color and the background, giving us amazing texture. In addition to the palette knife that I used to apply the ink, I'm also going to use the stencil pal to get a nice even application, and then use something kind of sharp to help pop that up, and then lay it to the side to dry. The paste does dry very quickly, so that will be great. However, I have quite a bit of work to do to get all of the elements for both of these card backgrounds. So by the time I am ready to create or put it all together, the backgrounds will be completely dry. So here I am applying what was left on my stencil pal from the previous card, and I may have to add a little bit more, but I'm just doing a nice scrape. Once I have everything where it goes, I will take any of the remaining grit paste off and place that back into my container, and then go wash everything really well with some warm water and soap if needed. I love a good text background, and textured backgrounds are my jam right now. Next, from the Bunny Trail stamp set, we are going to take the trio of bunnies as well as the carrot and stamp this a few times. I decided for this card, I wanted to have 2 rows of bunnies, 3 rows of text, and then scatter in some carrots in between. I think that the orange carrots against the beautiful tropic aqua background that we created is going to be a beautiful springy color combination, exactly what I'm looking for in this card design. So I am stamping my images with intensified black ink on Nina Smooth white cardstock, and then I will be coloring these in with some Olo markers. Now, I thought I was going to be able to flip that around, but I made a miscalculation. The images were too close together, so I am going to have to lift those up and move them. Next, I'm taking some Olo alcohol ink markers and I will color everything in. Down in the description below the video here on YouTube, as well as over on my blog, I have listed out the colors of markers I am using for easy reference. I have about 3 shades of green here. You could probably get away with 2. I wasn't exactly sure where I was going with this. I have a couple of shades I also have 3 shades of orange actually. And then I have a light brownish color and the 0 marker. So you'll notice that white marker on the screen. That is kind of what, if you are familiar with Copic markers, what the colorless blender is in Copics. It is going to be that blending solution. So it is not really blending anything, but it will kind of move your ink, and it works kind of as almost a edge softener. That's how I like to use it the most. And that is what we're going to be doing for the bunnies so that they retain the white color but have some great shading. The other colors I'm using are some very light red colors for noses and cheeks and insides of ears. I did try to do a assembly line quote unquote style of coloring where I did all of the green, then we'll do all of the orange, and finally we will work on the bunnies. I did use a dark color just for the lines on my carrots following those stamp lines, and that is a very dark orange red color. My medium orange red color, I'm going to go over those lines again, maybe adding a little extra that needs to be blended out, and then the lightest color will blend it all. I have found that with these markers specifically, I have really liked working from dark to light. You'll notice I did that in the green. I'm doing that here with the orange. You can do it either way. But what I find works, or what is happening, is I'm not oversaturating my cardstock as much this way. And so it's been working really great. Oh, those orange carrots. I think this is what's really going to pop against that aqua background. It's going to be amazing. Okay, so now we're going to take the rest of our markers and just start adding in some of that color. So I did decide to do the noses first with those reds, which I call this kind of the peachy reds. A darker peachy red and then a lighter peachy red. And these are also the colors I use to color in like cheeks on critters all of the time. So we're going to do little circles for the cheeks right near the whiskers. And we're also going to do a nice swipe with this color in the ears. We're going to be blending this out, so it's not going to be super harsh. I'm not even being super specific with it. And yes, I did miss one of the bunny ears. I notice it as I start coloring, and I will fix that, but I don't know how I missed that. Next, we're going to go in with a neutral. This is a very nice light color. This is an O marker. I think it's 7.3. It will be down in the description. And you'll notice I'm just doing a little kind of almost a feathering up the ears, and then just doing an outline of this bunny or bunny egg shape. Once I have that, I will go ahead and take my 0 marker and going over that edge, I'm going to just really kind of lightly soften that outline. I'm going to go over the cheeks. Going over the cheeks softens that pink on the cheeks as well. And then we're going to go up the ears, and that will soften the effect of the brown and the pink on the ears too. Just softening any harsh edges is really what I'm going for. I don't need a lot of color. This is super simple coloring here. We just want that hint of color for both rows. So let's go ahead and repeat this for the second row of bunnies. I did use a darker brown marker for the inside of the mouth on the little bunny with his mouth open. Repeating patterns is something that works really great. If you love a stamp set and let's say you stamp the bunnies on their own and you're looking at it and it's just not kind of what you're looking for. It's not taking up as much space as you thought it would on your card, or it just seems like it needs a little something extra. A repeating type of design is one of my favorite things. So in this case, it's going to be repeating rows. I was able to get 2 rows of bunnies, and I didn't feel like that overcrowded my design. And we're going to break up those rows with lines of text, meaning we're going to actually take 3 of the 4 sentiments in this stamp set and use them to help complete the design on this card. So I've die cut the bunnies and the carrots off camera, and I've got my rows of text. Now, the one thing about that top row of text is it reads, "I'm just hopping by to say hello." I don't want to use the word hello. I could cut that apart and then piece it back together if I wanted to. I'm not going to though. I'm just going to carefully stamp that in a way where I don't stamp the word hello, so we are not using that for this card. Before I stamp that, I am taking a black jelly roll pen and adding detail to the eyes on my bunnies. If you are new here, this is something that I do for my critters after I have die cut them. So if there is any kind of critter card or image card that has eyes or noses that need a little more embellishing, I like to do that after I have done the die cutting portion with these jelly roll pens, as I feel like it gives it a little bit of a raised look and it really makes the faces pop. I did take a white pen then and add some little dot detail to the cheeks. I know it's kind of hard to see here as I'm coloring. The first pen I used was kind of dry. I actually pitched it. I have several in my stash at all times because I always use these pens. Now we're going to take some Lawn Fawn Mermaid cardstock, and this color to me really goes well with the Tropic ink from Simon Says Stamp, and we're going to stamp those greetings. And as I mentioned, I'm not going to use the whole text for "I'm just hopping by to say hello." Using some Post-it tape, and this is just left over from holding dies down while I'm die cutting, I'm going to cover up the word hello and ink that up, remove the Post-it tape, and just stamp that top line. We'll ink up the remaining 2 sentiments and go ahead and stamp those with the embossing ink as well. I'm sprinkling on a little white embossing powder, using my heat tool to melt that embossing powder, and I love the white embossing on this aqua cardstock. And then we'll use some Simon Says Stamp sentiment label dies to die cut all of these into sentiment strips that we can then use on our card. If you don't have a sentiment strip die set, you can always use your paper trimmer and just cut these down. I love customizing sentiments to make them work for the card that I'm creating. So my card is going to read, "I'm just hopping by to say, I love you more than carrots, Happy Easter." To me, that just flowed so well. Starting in the center of the design, I popped up that sentiment strip, "I love you more than carrots," kind of right there in the middle, as you can see. I used some foam adhesive strips, and I'm placing foam adhesive squares back behind my bunnies and placing that up on top. Laying everything out on your card before you adhere it helps ensure that everything is going to be spaced correctly. I'm adding one of the carrots using a little liquid glue and just laying it right on top of the bunnies that have been popped up with foam. Then we're going to place the top sentiment strip up at the top, making sure the bunny's ear doesn't hinder the easy reading of that sentiment. Same thing with the second row of bunnies. I've placed foam adhesive on the back, and I don't want the ear to cover up too much of the words because we want them to be legible. Then I'm popping up this carrot so it looks like it's sticking out, and then we're going to layer a couple more carrots down here at the bottom. It creates a visual triangle even though we used 4 carrots. Once I have my last sentiment strip in place, we'll glue those carrots down and add a few embellishments to finish the design. I added glossy accents for the noses on the bunnies. I love to make the bunny noses or any kind of critter noses a little bit glossy. And using the glue press, I will also place some little dabs of glue around my design and use some pretty pink Posh seafoam jewels and apply those using an embellishment wand and the Simon Says Stamp triangle tray. I love these triangle trays for kind of corralling or wrangling all of those little gems and bits and bobs because they funnel back into your storage containers or Ziploc bags so easily. I also created a visual triangle with my gems, just putting a few down in the lower left, the right center, and then kind of in the middle. The last thing I'll do is glue this entire panel to a white top fold card base, and that is it. I absolutely love this card. It turned out so cute, and the subtle text stencil paste background is amazing. It is something I've been doing quite a bit lately with stencil or stenciling and text stencils in particular. I love the look of it. So if you haven't tried some stencil paste over a lightly inked background like this, just for some awesome added texture and interest, I encourage you to give it a try. And here's that glossy accents for the bunny's noses, just a teeny tiny bit. Okay, we're going to set this one aside, grab some more white cardstock. I'm using 110 pound weight Nina Smooth White cardstock today, and it's time to stamp the bunnies from the Bunny Kisses stamp set. Now, the thing about this stamp set and these bunnies, I decided to go ahead and stamp them first, or die cut them first, pardon me, and then stamp them. So see how they're very light? This was a trial and error. Using the sponge applicators from Simon Says Stamp Rainbow Splash, I am going to apply my ink very lightly around the edges of the stamp using this sponge applicator. So see how I'm going around? That is how I did the bunnies as well. This allows the center of the design to stay white, plus it's a much lighter application than if I use the color Full Force. You could also use second generation stamping and see if that would work. The color I used for the bunnies is Flannel Positively Saturated ink from Simon Says Stamp. We're going to do the same thing for the inside of the ear, the cheek, and the nose on our bunnies. And instead of using the full force of the ink, this is going to be applied with the sponge applicator as well, using Carnation ink from Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated. Now, you probably wouldn't have to do this, but I thought with the light color of the bunny itself, I would at least try this and see if I liked the effect. I did, so I went ahead and went for it. Now, I did apply the ink all over the stamp, not just on the edges, and I did stamp it more than once to make sure that I got the intensity that I liked for the bunnies. You can start to see their cute little bunnies come to life. Now, we have the ear on the back side, so I am going to grab those too, but I did take a black jelly roll pen and add the eyes, and adding the eyes made all of the difference on these bunnies. I feel like it just makes them come to life. These are absolutely adorable. So next we're going to take the rest of the bunny ear, and just like we did for the bunny tail and the bunny itself, we're going to go around the edges with flannel ink, and that's going to give the right color, I feel like, to those ears. And I felt like I got too much ink on there, so I'm going to start over. And that looks great. Guess we'll fix that one a little bit. Now that I have my bunnies, I need to get the rest of the elements for this card. We're going to be pulling from the second stamp set, which is Lots of Luck, and we're going to be using the grass, the the 4-leaf and 3-leaf clovers, and the ladybug from this. Our sentiments will be from Bunny Kisses. I'm going to stamp the grass 3 times. Now, I did stamp it, and then I thought, you know what, I really should probably die cut it first and then stamp it. So I did, and I'm just going to swap out my stamp image into the negative space for each of these. So we're going to rotate, and I'm using a combination of LIMELICIOUS and Perfection inks for the grass. For the shamrocks, I'm going to be using a combination of Fairway and Field inks so that I have 2 different green colors. I did want more than one of these tufts of grass so that I could group them together to make more of an impact for the scene card. I stamped most of these more than once, just kind of building the intensity a little bit. It's really easy if you want to make multiples, and you could even make multiple bunnies if you wanted to simply die cut a bunch and then slide them into that negative space and simply mass produce. And that is going to work for anything like this. Now, I found that this technique worked awesome for almost everything that I'm stamping. So the bunnies were stamped this way, the grass is stamped this way, the shamrocks are going to be stamped this way, and then the hearts I can just stamp, you know, that's not a layer at all. We're going to stamp those with Simon Says Stamp blush ink and then die cut those. And then the ladybug from the Lots of Luck, I used watermelon and charcoal for that, but we're going to stamp him last, or her last. But here is the negative space for my shamrocks. I did have a little blunder and error. My stamp moved. That always stinks, but I just die cut another one. So you're going to notice, like, look at that. How did I not notice that I did that? I leave it in to show you that those things happen. There was a whole bunch of, like, a comedy of errors about this time when creating these cards. I knocked so many things off my table. I had to search for a die for like 5 minutes. I mean, so silly, you guys. I don't even know why I couldn't find it. So we're going to create one of the large shamrocks and 2 of the small. Again, I like to kind of create elements in odd numbers, and I felt like having just 2 stick up was okay, but I liked the idea of doing 3. You also get an awesome layering flower in the Lots of Luck stamp set. I opted not to use it today. I didn't want to, I mean, at this point, I kind of thought I might, but I kept laying everything out on my card background as I stamped each individual piece just to see what more do I need? Is that going to be too much? You know, things like that. I encourage you to do the same. As you're working, maybe kind of work in small batches. Do your bunnies and grass and then do the shamrocks or whatever and lay them out and see, do I actually need more? Is that too much for this design? I knew I wanted to do a sentiment up high and down below, kind of following the formula that we used for the previous card. Obviously, they are both completely different designs with the same background, but I knew that I just didn't want to overcrowd, I guess is what I want to say, the top of the card or the greenery and things coming up out of the grass. So I opted not to use the flower for this design and instead focused on anything green, the grass and the shamrocks. The ladybug is stamped with watermelon and charcoal, positively saturated inks, and it's just a 2-piece layering, which is pretty simple. We'll die cut that, and then we're going to put it all together and get our sentiments. Now, something that I copied from the previous card is I loved how the sentiments looked embossed in white on that mermaid cardstock. We're going to follow that same formula for this card and not introduce any super dark color. So, there's not really a lot of black. Yes, there's the charcoal on the ladybug, but that's so minimal. And on the first card, there's the stamping of the outline, you know, the outline work of those images, but that's also minimal. To me, the softness of the white embossing on the mermaid cardstock just says spring. And that's definitely the feel I was going for with these designs. We're going to stamp Somebody Loves You and Happy Easter from the Bunny Kisses stamp set. We're prepping our cardstock with our powder tool first, and then stamping each of these sentiments with the embossing ink from Simon Says Stamp and heat embossing with the white embossing powder. I haven't used these stamps before, so I did stamp them more than once with the ink just to make sure that I had really good coverage for the embossing powder to stick to. We'll tap off all of that excess, and there are coordinating dies for all of the greetings in the Bunny Kisses stamp set. You could choose to to die cut those using sentiment labels if you prefer, or go ahead and use those coordinating dies, which is what I'm going to do here. After I've heat embossed these, I will die cut them, and it's time to put it all together. Starting at the back of the card and working my way to the front, I'm going to start with the highest point, which is the 4-leaf clover, and then we're going to tuck the 3-leaf little shamrock there, in place. I think it's called a shamrock. If I'm saying it wrong, just forgive me. And then I'm going to glue down the grass. And I'm having my bunnies kind of hide all of that layering. So you'll notice I double check with my bunnies quite a bit to make sure everything looks really nice here on the front, hiding seams and things back behind. We're going to place foam adhesive on the back of the bunny and pop up both of the bunnies and our sentiments for our card. From here on out, we're going to be popping up several things. So the grass and the shamrocks all glued directly to the background. Our ladybug and our big heart sentiments are all going to be popped up. Now we're going to place our second bunny down here. And you'll notice there's a nice little bit of white space down below where we're adding our sentiment. And I'm using a skinny sentiment strip to pop that right there, right below the bunnies. And to me, overlapping the bunnies just a little bit like that is the perfect look. I like how it's all kind of touching, I guess, for lack of a better way to describe it. And then I like that heart down at the bottom. It almost draws your eye down to that sentiment. So I placed the bigger heart there, and I really thought I might stamp another heart. In fact, I got my dies back out and everything. But looking at the card, the visual triangle that the ladybug and then the small heart and big heart, well, they're both small, the tiny and the small heart create, I thought, you know, I don't know that I need another heart on this card. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it as is and place glossy accents on the hearts and on my ladybug. And then we'll finish this card with a scattering of those same sea foam jewels from Pretty Pink Posh. Here is a close-up look at both of the finished cards. Thank you so much for joining me today for these 2 Easter cards featuring stamps, dies, and stencils from the Simon Says Stamp Splendor release. The supplies I used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me today for another paper crafting tutorial. I love being able to share with this incredible community of crafters. I want to give a huge shout out and special thank you to my amazing Patreon members. If you're interested in joining Patreon, please click the link in the description underneath the video here on YouTube. Patreon is a private community where you can support more of what I do. There is exclusive content, information, and behind the scenes content. Top tier members will receive a handmade birthday card during your birthday month, access to D-Stash, and monthly exclusive lives, plus so much more. We would love to have you join our growing community. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, click the like button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to always be notified when I have a new paper crafting video or I go live. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time.